And so today we're talking about meditation. And Rob is in the same room as me. That's why I keep looking over here. It's just that we're on different cameras. Just in case you're wondering what I'm looking at, meditation is really something. I was just at an event at the Inc. Event last weekend, Inc. Women's Summit, Inc. Magazine. And there were a lot of really successful women there. And I spoke to a lot of them. And a lot of the biggest question was, how do I meditate? I
Right.
just started meditating, and I was really inspired too because Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, the billion-dollar woman, uh, everyone asked what was the secret to her success, and she said it was self-awareness. It was about working
Right.
with your mind.
Oh, no doubt. If you ask star athletes, movie stars, really successful people in any field, most of them will tell you it's mindset.
Hmm.
You have to have a success mindset, and you have to be able to use whatever tools are available to create that mindset. And obviously, meditation is one of the keys.
Hmm.
Now, there's a lot of different types of meditation, and people can get confused as to what are people talking about when they say meditation.
Yeah, what is meditation?
Right. So we're going to give you kind of our from our perspective, obviously, but more of a psychological interpretation of what meditation is and how it fits into this thing we call mindset.
So, okay. Well, meditation for me is a way to work with the mind. And so there's a meditation that we can meditate on anything. We can meditate on something really terrible. We
That's
can
right.
kind of think about and worry, and we're meditating on how bad things are. We're meditating on a baseball game or a football game, or we're meditating on a movie, it's kind of like where our attention of our mind goes. And so the true meditation is basically reining in that mind and being able to use it as a tool versus letting it just run on autopilot. So if you don't pay, it's like a muscle. If you don't pay attention to it, you let it run, it's just going to flop all over the place. And isn't the wise man says that it's harder to tame than the wind, the mind.
Absolutely. So there's two types of meditation in general. Like we can divide all the different kinds of meditation. There's probably like 400 of different types, but
400, let's name them all. Just
yeah,
kidding.
we can divide them into two camps.
Okay.
One is the approach is to still the mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you've all tried those breathing meditations where you focus on the breath, you kind of let the mind quiet down by itself. That's that first type. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a quieting of the mind, and the idea is to kind of let the thoughts come and go, like the weather.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they describe it like clouds passing through the sky. They're here one moment, but they'll pass, and the sky remains clear. So that's our mind. Our natural mind is clear. Our thoughts kind of obstruct that clearness and create this, tumultuous confusion that we call our mind. Uh, and it creates those things by our thoughts and our feelings. And the more we focus on this and we identify those with those feelings and thoughts, we become entangled in our own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon we can't find our way out. So that type of meditation, that stillness meditation, is about calming the mind so that we can start to see its original state. What
Mm-hmm.
is the original state of the mind? It's calm, it's clear, it's full of just potential. Basically, it has no agenda. It's just kind of a blank, empty, beautiful blue sky that is not really up to anything
Mm-hmm.
until our thoughts then kind of bring in all the drama and all the kind of emotion to it.
And we can't really, it's very hard for us to stop the mind. I think a lot of people think that meditation is, I'm going to have no thoughts. I'm going to sit there, but I keep thinking,
Yeah.
what I'm doing it wrong. And that type of meditation, what the goal is to go to that stillness of the mind, but it's not that you can hold it for very long. And so that's a type of meditation. But I wanted to also talk about, the difference between meditation and visualization. because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people confuse that. They're like, oh, I like your meditations. And I'm like, well, they're visualizations. Sometimes they're called meditations. But when you're visualizing and you're kind of creating like your vision for your life, or you're working with your unconscious, we do a lot of work with the shadow, the inner Adam, working with the,
Those are archetypes.
yeah, archetypes, and you're kind of visualizing those things and seeing your future, and that's a different type. And it's not really meditation, it's more visualization. It's more like using the mind to direct it and kind of create from it, where pure
Yes.
meditation is really, like you were saying, it's just stilling the mind. So there's a difference between, what are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to still the mind, or are you trying to use the thoughts to create something?
Yes. Yeah, that's the other camp. The
Mhm.
other type of meditation is where you're actually using the mind in a directed way. Let's say
Mhm.
it can be guided or it can be self-directed. In other words, you can kind of develop your own script as
Mhm.
you go into this meditative state, and you want to call up certain things. So in visualization, for example, you're calling up images of what you want to create, or a particular state of mind that you want to infuse your mind with,
Mhm.
through focused concentration on it. That kind of meditation, some people call it visualization. In some Buddhist schools, they call it working with virtuous objects, meaning a virtuous object can be compassion, for example.
Mhm.
If you want to create a compassionate mind, you call up, let's say, an incident where you can practice compassion in your mind, and then you cultivate that feeling
Mhm.
to where it starts to grow and infuse your whole mind and body with compassion. So now you're actively directing your mind through visualization, which is really the imagination, through imagination, to create specific types of minds,
Mhm.
whether it be happiness, compassion, love, etc.
But we're going to go back to meditation, because that's really like, want to show the difference. But we really want to focus on meditation today, it's good that we know that, because a lot of people are thinking they're meditating when they're visualizing. Like, I do my meditation every day, which is I'm visualizing me and my ideal partner, or I'm visualizing my success, and it's like, that's not really kind of the meditation like that as it was meant to be. And of course, it's better than nothing. It's better than just kind of letting your mind just do what it does. So
Yeah.
what happens is that we were born with this like beautiful creative mind, this like stillness that's full of potential. And then we have the ego, that mind that kind of becomes protective, and it creates these scenarios and these stories about life and about ourselves. And so that narrative starts running our life and basically covering up that creative mind. So it becomes kind of like, you see the blue sky, you said, and then the dark clouds come in, and it's like stormy weather coming in, and it's like almost like we can't relax, because the ego's always trying to look for, to feel better. And that kind of mind, a lot, like we say, you can't still it, because it's the nature of that thinking mind is not to be like, if you try to tame it, it's just like, oh, you're going to be, it's like
You get caught
wrestling,
up in
like I
it.
always say, it's like herding cats. It's like, you can't control them. And so what you're doing when you fight the thinking, a lot of times it becomes very frustrating, and it actually puts a lot of anxiety in your mind, and makes that meditative experience really unhappy. And so what we want to do is, we don't want to fight the feeling. And I think a lot of people, what they do, the whole thing about positive thinking is, they think, well, when I meditate and I'm thinking negative, I got to switch that thought right away. I got to fix the thought. And so then that meditative process becomes
Yeah.
where you don't even want to be there. You don't want to hear those thoughts anymore. You're like, get away. I don't want to sit with myself. And so then you feel more comfortable with the visualization and creating and getting away from that noise in your mind. But that doesn't get rid of, so it's like you really can't master your mind if you're just still trying to get rid of the negative thinking.
That's right. Yeah, so there's a technique called metaconsciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and metaconsciousness simply means what the word says. Meta means above, and
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, obviously, our awareness. So it's taking a step above our ordinary awareness. So right now you have an awareness of where you are, where your body is, your position in space and time. That awareness, we can rise above it.
Mm-hmm.
And through a meditative practice, then if we sit, you can either sit in a chair or sit on the floor, the cross leg style, the lotus, half lotus or full lotus, and relax a little bit. Take a few deep breaths, and you close your eyes gently, and you start to see what's going on inside your mind. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to create a little bit of space between your thoughts and the feelings and the sensations that you are experiencing, and who is the one witnessing those thoughts and emotions. So that it creates that meta experience, that meta consciousness. It is the mind's ability to observe itself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we all have this, and it's very common. We use it all the time, but because we're not focused on it and we're not actively cultivating it, we fall basically into getting caught up with our thoughts and emotions, and we start to believe that that's all there is.
Mm-hmm.
My thoughts are telling me something about reality, and therefore I have to follow these thoughts and emotions. But when we sit and meditate in meta consciousness, we're stepping back a little bit and observing them. Now, the approach is very important. We're not judging the thoughts as right or wrong.
Or
We're not
negative or positive.
negative or positive. We're not trying to stop them. We're not trying to direct them in any way. We're simply stepping back and observing our thoughts and emotions.
So I'd like to lead everyone through a quick meta consciousness exercise.
Sure.
Is it, do I have your permission? So if you're not driving, watching your Facebook, or you're in a public place and you can close your eyes for a moment, or even you don't even have to have your eyes closed, just play along with us for a minute and just kind of close your eyes and just take a deep breath. And then you're going to notice the thoughts that arise in your mind. You just watch them come up. You might have the thought, I hope I'm doing this right. Where's that peace that Dr. Rob told me was there, that clear mind? Maybe you're thinking about your body, how comfortable you are, how uncomfortable you are. And just settle in a little more and just see if you can move your awareness to outside of your body as you're looking down at yourself thinking. As if you're just floating like a beautiful light, looking down at the heavy body with all the thoughts. And just watch the thoughts. Don't try to judge them or push them away. Just let them float by, just like a bird flying through the sky. Just let it move through you. And you'll notice that some of these thoughts have an emotional tone to them. They trigger you a little bit, either good or bad ways, feeling light or more tense. Notice how your mind keeps going back into your body in the thinking part and not witnessing. And just pull yourself back to watch. Watching the stories your mind is creating, consistently running in the background. And just notice that there's a element of peace after a while if you just let the thoughts be there without trying to fix them. And just focus on your breathing and how it feels to just let go of the engagement of those thoughts. Just let them just run while another part of you stays in the stillness. And then when you're ready, just open your eyes and come back. Did you go offline for
Awesome.
you wanted to not see me?
Yeah.
Just wanted to give you a little taste of that. Now, if you do this 5 minutes a day, as soon as you wake up in the morning, just 5 minutes, what you're going to start to see is a theme. A theme is going to arise. Every day, you're going to notice that you're trying to solve the same problem. Your mind is trying to solve the same problem, the problem of being human, and how much that thinking mind we get so caught up in that. We get
Absolutely.
so caught up in these problems, and we don't have that moment of just relaxing in peace. And our whole life, if we never do this, will be just a continuous flow of thinking and problem solving that that when we get to the end, we'll be like, I missed the whole thing. It's like kind of getting stressed. Like if you ever watch a movie and you're thinking of something else throughout the movie and you kind of miss the whole thing, or miss, because you have a problem you're dealing with and you kind of miss the beauty of the sunset or the beauty of the movie. And you're like, God, I missed the whole thing because my head was so full of problems.
Right.
And so when we do this, we're actually getting control of the thinking and that clear mind. So it helps us understand ourselves more and where the nature of the mind.
Absolutely. And it's our nature to practice these kind of meditations. If you notice, kids, when they're resting, when they're playing, they often space out for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
or they daydream. That's the type of meditation. They're using their imagination to visualize, to create these inner worlds and to observe their inner world. So it's already built in to our
Mm-hmm.
system. All we have to do is to start focusing in on it and practicing. And the key, like anything else, is to practice.
And this idea of enlightenment comes in those moments where you're witnessing. That's enlightenment, is that you don't identify with the thoughts. That moment you're in enlightenment. And then you go back in, and then it's kind of like this. I always talk about the mind being like an instrument that we're trying to learn, and that we keep throughout our life, keep fine tuning that instrument. Just like the master, we saw
Mm.
Perlman play the violin. I mean, he's just amazing. He's like 90 years old now, but he still probably can reach another level of perfection, but he uses that instrument so beautifully that it's like so in tune with the divine. And then that's really what our goal is. It's not to like get things out there, like I'm going to meditate so I can have things in the material world. It's really to realize our true nature and to have that, because you can have things in the world, but if you're anxious about them, what good do they do if you don't have a peaceful mind? It's like you're just keep chasing those carrots. So I love this idea that there's no agenda in meditation. The only goal really is to find that stillness and give yourself, like, even if you have 2 seconds of stillness the first time, that's more than you had yesterday. And what you want to do is just lengthen that time. And it really
Mm.
will change your day, and you'll start to see the narrative. And I have to tell you a story. One time I was sitting and meditating, and I was kind of worried about money. We had just moved to New York, and I was starting my coaching business, and Rob was getting his PhD, and like I was not being a hypnotherapist anymore. So it was like a transitionary period. And I was sitting there, like Rob went to work, and I was sitting, I got to meditate. And I just couldn't sit there. I was like, oh, like I just can't relax. I can't relax. I got to get up and do something. And I just forced myself to sit there. And then I just kind of heard my mind just worry and worry and worry. And then all of a sudden I said, oh my God, I remember worrying about finding a man one day, like this, I used to think about that. And I was like, my mind is always going to worry about something. And in that moment, everything got clear for me. And it was just such a breakthrough just in meditation that you're just,
Mm.
you get that clarity, you get that clear of mind where you step out of the story and you're just like, you get in touch with that wisdom mind. And you're just like, oh my God, like I just felt so relieved. And then everything started to change financially for us, for me and the business after that, like new opportunities came in because I kind of got out of that kind of that gerbil wheel of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. My first experience with meditation was, I read this book. I think it was like the Zen book or something. And I thought, wow, I got to experience this. So I would sit and meditate. And like 5 minutes into that, I was thinking, well, nothing's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the enlightenment?
Mm-hmm.
And, you're expecting fireworks or something,
Yeah.
but
Like a glow and you're going to float in the light. And
right. It's not about that. It's about stilling the mind, quieting the mind. In this type of meditation, we'll talk about other types later, and really getting in touch with the true nature of the mind, which is that stillness. But the stillness, it's not just an emptiness. It's not just like a blank nothing. It is a restorative state, very much like when we go into deep sleep, we're restored and rejuvenated. When we touch that stillness in us, we are rejuvenated.
I feel rejuvenated just by doing that little thing for myself. Absolutely. Even I was leading it. I was meditating while I was leading a meditation. So do we have any questions? We have about 5 minutes left. We wanted to do that little, people are saying they love it. Thank you. I love your Facebook videos. Someone said, I'm a meditator. Let's see, who's here? Who would like to ask a question? I know this is a little delayed, so we'll probably get some questions soon, but there's other types of meditation. Some people focus on their breathing, in that if you need that tool, like if you want something. For me, when I first started, I imagined like my clear mind being a beautiful light that was behind me. And I would basically fall back into it. And I would just like kind of envelop myself in this light and watch my little human self kind of sit there thinking. And so that's kind of, if you need that kind of handle or that kind of visual to help you, you can do that. But remember that you're in that. Another tool, someone told me this once, is really beautiful, is that you watch, like you're standing at the edge of a rushing river bank and you're watching the river flow really like fast, like one of those rapid rivers that people take the tubes down. And you think of that rushing river as your mind and the thinking mind. And you're in there, you could stand on the edge of the bank and just watch that go by. And what happens is we get caught up in like a thought or an idea or a story and emotionally attached, and it pulls us into the river and drags us away. And we kind of lose our mind for a minute. And then all we need to do is put ourselves back on the bank and find the peace again and watch the thought. So that would be another visual. Like I'm a very visual person. So for me, that helps as well, is just to kind of put myself back on the bank and watch that rushing river of thought go by. And most of it's nonsense. I mean, we all think, oh, well, you got to listen to that creative thinking, the problem solver, it's like nonsense. It's always telling you how things can't work most of the time, right?
Not me. I have great thoughts.
Oh, perfect. Well, and the thing is, there is the ego mind, the thinking mind, and there's also the intellect, which is what the ego uses, our intellect. But we do have an intellect that is not just not the ego. That if there's an intellectual, like our brain has that capacity to reason and look at things and analyze things and learn. So
yeah, the more we understand about the mind, the more we can get out of our meditation. So a lot of people think the ego kind of fills the conscious mind, but it's just one little aspect of it. And we can think of it more as a function of the conscious mind. And its function is basically to give us a sense of I. Like I am here and I am going to the store and I'm going to work, and all that sense of I-ness. It's important. We need it. But when we identify with it and when we over-identify with it, then it becomes problematic because we're focusing on a very limited aspect of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
We're not letting in our consciousness, our full consciousness, like you mentioned, the intellect, the full spectrum of our memory, our imagination is
Mm-hmm.
kind of being drowned out by this I,
Mm-hmm.
because the sense of I, its focus is survival. And so survival is very limited. A little mouse can survive in the world. They don't need a lot of brain power.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we reduce our mind to I, to ego, we are basically just in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with it, but it's a very limited mindset. So meditation in this context starts to open up the possibilities of the mind through the imagination, through that stillness and seeing the true nature of the mind.
I love that. I love that. That I would think of the ego as the limited self that only can create from what it's created before. So it just repeats patterns, that thinking, trying to problem solver kind of, but it's always looking backwards. It's always saying, well, how do we do it last time? Or it looks in the current situation and compares ourselves to others and what they have done and what's possible. And then this creative self, which is our true nature, is kind of drowned out by that. And if we meditate, we actually bring that creative self more to the front of our life. Like you said, the imagination, the inspiration, the intuition, our intellect can be used in a more intuitive way versus a destructive way, like a creative way. And so you really are able to get more in control of how the direction of your life through this very simple practice. So it doesn't have to be, so hard. So here's some questions. Hello, Mara. Love your comment. Thank you. She said, I'm gorgeous. Thank you, Mara. I paid her to say that. We have a question. When you go through a breakup, how do you stop thinking about that person? Well, this metaconsciousness is a perfect way to do that, because you have to ask yourself why you are thinking about this person. Like, what is that person giving you that you don't think you have? Like, why are you so obsessed with that person?
Right.
And why is your ego so obsessed? And what we're really probably thinking, and when you can't let go of someone that rejects you, is that you feel that they're going to save you in some way. They're going to make your life better in some way. Your survival's tied into that. So that's what I would do is just paying attention to what's the narrative around that person. If they don't come back to me, or maybe even beating yourself up of what I did wrong and how I could have prevented this person from leaving, And so look at the narrative, look at the theme of what you're thinking, and you're going to notice that it's going to show up in that thought. So that's a perfect way. And then if you really want to stop thinking about the person, we do have a wonderful course called the Love Detox. That's really cool. That's really takes you through your attachment style, the style of relating, and the meditations that go with that to help you with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just by creating that space, then you're able to see thoughts and emotions that arise regardless of what they're about, whether they're about your ex or past things that you did. You're able to create that healthy space between you, the real you, the higher self, the creative self, and that ego thinking, that ego mind that's always kind of, like you say, trying to solve problems or trying to figure things out.
It's all caught up in that ex relationship. It's the ego that's caught up, and you have to access that other part.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have another question. We are so attached to these thoughts, it's hard to let go of them sometimes.
Very true. That is why it requires understanding, first of all, how do we meditate? What is the purpose of that meditation? And what is the nature of the mind? If we don't understand those things, then we're just practicing relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people do the breathing meditations and relaxation. And of course, that's fine. It's going to help you manage stress perhaps a little bit, but it's not really the purpose of meditation. The purpose of meditation is to work with our thoughts, work with our minds.
Mm-hmm.
The great scholar Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras,
mm-hmm.
the first verse, it says, the purpose of yoga is to still the mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? To be able to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them.
So someone wrote, I meditate 30 minutes in the morning and in the evening, and I focus in my body, particularly in my hands, and I ask my angel to hold my hands. I feel a subtle touch. I want you to know that that angel is you. It's not, that is
That's
you.
she's talking about me.
Oh, no, the creative, that's your creative self. That there, it's not outside of you. And so one of the things that, we teach is that we're one with everything. So there's nothing separate from you. So if I bet you'd feel even more solid knowing that that is you versus something outside of you coming in to support the little human. Is like that part of you is always with you, and that angel is you. So remember that.
Beautiful.
And you just clarified one of my questions on how to steer gently from our mind, judging the thoughts passing by, to be the observer during meditation. Thank you. When I first started meditating, it was so hard because I was trying to fix my mind. I was like, okay, I got to think positive. And then when I would think negative, I'd be like, oh God, I'm thinking negative. I better stop. And then I would want to leave because I wouldn't want to give all that energy. And then I just didn't want to be with myself. And I think a lot of people, that's why our world is so busy, right? Because we need our cell phones, we need TV, we need the internet, we need to keep working out or whatever we do to kind of get away from that thinking. And we're so afraid to just sit there and be with ourselves.
Right. And the reason we practice is that we can carry that mind into our everyday activities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just while you're sitting and meditating. It's actually then becomes your mind's way of seeing your thoughts and emotions, so that when you're doing things, when you're in action and things are happening and you're at work and the boss is giving you problems or something's going on, you can still detach yourself a little bit, or non-attachment, and observe what your mind is doing in reaction to those situations.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really useful, because then you're not reacting from those thoughts and emotions that arise from the situation. You're able to make decisions from that larger space, that true mind of possibility.
So the question is, this angel, if it's inside of me, can also be my inner Adam? Well, it could be. The inner Adam is really for a woman, it's the creative self, personified for a woman, and for a man, his inner Eve is the personified creative self, his muse. So it's kind of like your inner muse. So, but it doesn't have to be masculine or feminine in a social sense. It's just that kind of like, it's kind of like your emissary to the collective, which is all that is, and for us as humans, we can't have a 1 to a million relationship with the universe. So we need that kind of creative self, that individual self, that unseen self, that to relate to, just for us to kind of have a conceptual idea and navigate the world, because we are individual. So why are we so afraid of ourselves doing nothing?
That's a good question, right?
Well, we have that urge to survive, right? We're born with that urgency to live, right? So when we were a baby, we needed those kind of like urgency. Like if we didn't, like we sat there and we were like, oh, I don't care if I eat. I don't care if I poop in my pants and no one changes me. And, I don't have to be warm. Like we wouldn't survive. So we need a body to survive. And so that was like the first reason the ego was born out of, is I have to protect this body. I have to survive. And so that's why, if we're afraid to do nothing and because if we do nothing, we could die. And so that's kind of the thoughts arise from that fear of non-existence.
Yes, and it's also conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
So
which is survival.
Yeah, we've conditioned our mind to always be on the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense is to create this persona and to keep up the persona that makes us feel safe. And so the conditioning is always prompting us to keep up this persona, and to work on the ego, to solve those problems that the ego is perceiving. And the ego's job is simply to look for problems to solve. And so it's always finding something. And so when we sit down and we don't understand the nature of the mind, what immediately comes up is, you got to move, you got to solve these problems, you got to fix this and that. And by the time we know it, we're very uncomfortable just sitting with our thoughts and ourselves. We feel like I should be doing something. I got to all kinds of things pop up in our head.
Mm.
But if we recognize what they are, then we're able to again gain that healthy space between our true self, the witness of our thoughts, and the thoughts and the emotions.
So we're over time. We have to go, but wanted to thank you everyone for joining us. We will be doing these every week. We haven't picked a day yet that we're going to do it on a regular basis because of our schedule. But we also wanted to invite you to come to our event in LA this next weekend, Destiny. It's 2.5 days of transformation. We're going to do lots of visualization, meditation. We're going to help you work with your mind, your ego. You're going to face your shadow. We're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about reaching your dreams. So we hope you come. And if you're over in Europe, we're going to be in London on October 14th and 15th for the Heart of Love. So if you're interested in any of those events, please contact us. Go to our website, debbieandrob.com, and say talk to us and get on the phone. We have our lead coach, Teresa, who can talk to you live if you want a consultation. And we hope to see you live, not only over the video, but in person.
Absolutely. Hope to see you there.
So take care, everyone. Happy meditating. And remember that who you really are is unlimited and powerful, and you can get whatever you want. So we hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.